today we are going to be talking about some of the resources that you can use as a chapter advisor to guide your students towards producing a program of activities. We're going to dig deeper into the program of activities itself next week, but today we're kind of laying the foundational work. So far, you should have completed your chapter profile. You should be able to update your complete program enrollment up until this year. Add your teacher profiles, and then if you know your courses for next year, you can go ahead and add those, and you should have been able to set up your teacher login. If you go to our website, to the AET resources, you should be able to pull up a help sheet, and I'm going to pull what that looks like. So you should be able to pull up a sheet that looks like this. And so we're going to go through each of these steps step by step. But if you lose track or need to go back, just know that all of these are on our website right here under help sheet, and we're on session 4.
So if you click resources on the main top and then teacher resources, AET is like the first option at the top of the page.
Right there.
So if you've missed a couple of them, this is where you can watch the videos, find help sheets, and take the quizzes if you need hours or CEUs. I know we have I think we have like 4 or 5 times the number of people who watch these after the fact, and that's okay.
Absolutely. So if we look at our help sheet, our first thing that we're going to do is actually establish who our student leaders are. So if you go ahead and log into, oh, I need to back up. So if you go ahead and log into AET and go into your account, for the first time on these trainings, we're actually going to be in the tracker tab. In order to give student access, it's under C2, and you are able to add people into your program of activities. So let's say that we wanted to give Jim Ertl access. We could add them to it, and that would be able to give him access to some of these tools. Going back to the tracker, we're going to start building our strategic plan, which is C4.
I think this is going to be a really good document for you to use on officer retreats. You may have already had a retreat. I'm guessing most of us haven't with COVID. And so even if you're not able to go out of town on the typical van ride and camping in a cabin, this would be a cool activity to gather in a park to do, or have your officer team at the school and you all kind of sit far apart and you can kind of walk through who we are as an FFA chapter, what do we care about, what are the things we want to accomplish as a team. So if you're looking for stuff to do in the summer, this would be a really good first activity with your new officer teams.
Mm-hmm. And they have printable versions if you're in a park without Wi-Fi. So the first step, since we are at the beginning of the year, is you can go ahead and click Create New Strategic Plan. And the first thing you're going to do is determine when your plan starts. A lot of schools either use the school year or their officer teams officer year of whatever months those are. So let's just go ahead and assume that we're starting in August. And so then our 12 months later would be July 31st. And then we can click Create New Plan.
Now, question for you. I literally just had my retreat the other day following all this, and we have ours in a Word document. Can we just copy and paste it across?
You should be able to, yeah.
And this isn't a requirement of the state. I think at some point, right now you have to turn in your POA when you turn in your rosters, and we're
every few years, depending on. Yeah. I mean, I send it but okay.
And I know Julia said every few years. Technically the Constitution says we have to turn in annually, and so I don't know how we've gotten through all those things, but I think in the future we're not going to make you turn that stuff in. We're just going to look here, like, do you have stuff on your calendar and do you have a strategic plan done? So it's not yet. I think you guys would tell us when you're ready for us to make that switch. But yeah, if you have it in Word, you could put it here and then you wouldn't have to send anything to Julia anymore.
Okay.
Joe also asked a good question. If you are applying for the National Chapter Award, again, you can pick whatever days you want. Those tend to be due March 1st. And so if you want it to go from March 1st to February 28th, 29th, depending on the year, you can go ahead and align it. However, it is totally up to you what your year is, as long as you're consistent from year to year so that you're not jumping and missing entire months. So for this example, we're just going to use August to July, but you can use whatever months you like. For this training, we're going to focus on the strategic planning tab here. A couple of things to note about this system is that anytime you have questions, there's usually a little green circle that you can click on, and it'll give you information. And so even for start dates, it gives some recommendations of either when you start with new officers, when you have a new school's fiscal year, or when your school year starts. So there's lots of little question marks that can give you guidance along the way if you're not sure where to go. The first thing we're going to look at is the mission statement. And so they do give some examples if you're looking for some examples of mission statements, including the national FFAs, and then it gives some agricultural businesses. But really a mission statement is that overarching perspective of what we want our program to be. And then as we transition down to the vision statement, a vision statement is like a really long-term goal of what that actually looks like. So for example, they give an example of growing our local community's knowledge of the FFA program. This is able to then take that to the next step when eventually you write goals of what are our long-term multi-year goals, or kind of a vision statement, and then your actual goals for that year become the SMART goals that we'll set next week.
Can you show us the PDF form 2, the worksheet or help sheet for this?
Yeah.
I think you have it up on the top, right? Yeah. So this here is it's a nice printout, and it walks you through all these steps we're talking about, but I usually didn't have them pull out their computers. When I would sit with my officer team, I would say, all right, let's plan our mission statement. Is it the same as national FFAs? Like in Red Wing, we cared a lot about community service. We weren't really that big on CDE teams. It wasn't something we cared a lot about. And so our mission and our vision was more oriented to that. And so what is the thing that your officers care about? And that shifts. But these visuals, like Lavin said, they pop up in the little question marks, but this worksheet is really helpful too. It's the exact same stuff, just whichever format you like it in.
Yep. So on the printout, it has the examples of mission statements right on it and gives them room to write it. So this would be easy to just print out and give to your students or put into an officer binder of some sort. And then they have vision statements or objectives here as well of how to make that a reality. What does it look like? What questions do you have on vision and mission? All right.
Okay, so I'm old school. We broke it down following the old, well, now I know that's changed, but community student chapter. Are we, I haven't, not having divulged into this far enough, learning as we're going. Is that what we're doing kind of across the top? Or are we going to be remaking these pages over and over? I guess I'm just curious.
No, this sheet here was something that I worked with Roger on to make it, and it hasn't changed in 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
The student chapter and community is still there. They just put new words on them. Now it's growing leaders instead of student.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what's in the handbook. Okay.
So you just put some more parameters around it. You said you wanted your officers to think through what is our mission and vision related to those areas, which he kind of says there, like we exist to, we hope to, but I think you're smart for teaming up, because then when you set your goals and your events, like your events fall into those areas, right? So that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Okay.
All right, the next step that we're going to look at is the SWOT analysis. And so this is something that's used quite often by businesses. And so trying to give those students the skills that they'll be able to use in their workplace in the future. Again, if you go to the little question mark or to the worksheet, it gives you some examples. Strengths and weaknesses both focus on the internal products of our program. And so some examples of strengths is you might have a good connection with your school administration. You might have access to a lot of community service opportunities, or you might have a school district that is, providing land for a crop plot. You have different access to things that are strengths of your programs. And likewise, looking again at the internal parts of your program, what are some of those weaknesses? So it might be that you want to get more students involved in FFA activities above the chapter level or at the chapter level. You need more finances to be able to afford your travel budget, or maybe you're working on a building project like a greenhouse. So what are those internal things of your program that are strengths or weaknesses that you can either leverage or things that you want to work towards? Then as you go down to opportunities, those are external factors. And so what are opportunities outside of our program that we have? So examples might be there's a community event that needs volunteers, or the new school bond is up for a vote and it includes money for a school greenhouse. So what are some of those external things that still influence your program that are an opportunity? And then threats are also external, but they are threats to your program. So, we had some safety legislation that was influencing SAE. And so that was a threat to some of our agriculture programs. COVID, I think, is a given threat right now that we don't have a lot of control over, but it's going to change how ag education and FFA look this year. And so what are some of those things that are influencing us outside of our program?
And Ms. Brada and I have other resources we can share here. We've got some curriculum from National FFA and other states. Like I usually help to describe strengths and weaknesses as more in the immediate concerns, while opportunities and threats can also be more futuristic. Sometimes I use symbols like strengths were weights, like lifting weights, and weaknesses were a broken chain, while like opportunities are like a key and a threat is like a bomb, like a ticking bomb waiting to go off, right? So like what are the doors we could open up, or the threats that could blow up in our face if we don't act? So she's right, this is a super common business and industry. You get together and have a vision session with your board of directors, kind of thing.
So then the last part of strategic planning is looking at the goals and outcomes. SMART goals is something that hopefully we're all familiar with, but I really liked how they had the little question mark. It says that the goals, you can, like, how do you convert a weakness into a strength, or how do you match a strength to an opportunity? So how can you capitalize on some of those opportunities, or how can you set goals to overcome some of those weaknesses? So if you have a goal of increasing membership, what does that actually look like? What can your chapter officers or members do to actually accomplish that goal? And so there's some opportunities for them to start brainstorming what those goals are. And then next week, we're going to talk about what that really looks like on a program of activities when they actually start to plan what some of those events and activities look like to bring those things to life. So at this point, they're just thinking overall futuristic, what are those goals that we want to reach for? And what are those outcomes? Like, what does it look like when we accomplish those? And then next week, we'll dive into what does that actually look like in event planning and a chapter calendar.
So we all know this, but remember, a goal has to have a number in it and it has to have a date in it. So as we look at these goals that were written here, it says 4 community activities by the end of the 2017 school year. So if your students say we want to grow our membership, like, cool, that's a nice dream. It's not really a goal. You're wishing for that, but so that's the big thing I always struggled with my members, but we don't have it here as a breakout line like it is in some of the other areas. So make sure it has a date and a time.
So looking under the question mark for outcomes, they're telling us basically they're filling this in after the fact?
Yeah, it's kind of how they're measuring it. So if you think of SMART, it's their measurable. So ideally they have it in their SMART goal of what meeting it looks like, and then their outcomes is what they actually accomplish.
The end result. Okay.
So you might start the year by reviewing what the previous team's plan was and if they met their goals.
So these are some tools that you can definitely use with your officer team. All of these are outlined in the little help sheet that they're able to print out and fill out. I know for my officer retreats, we would always do like a paper pencil, and then when they went home, they were assigned that there were certain things that they were responsible for going in and typing so that we wouldn't lose them ultimately. But there's a lot of different ways that you can do it and make this a reality for your chapter.
If you're needing help with this, reach out. Like, we can have regional officers work with your chapter officer team to walk through these processes, or if you're really struggling with the part of it, we can have state officers record videos on how to do some of these things. So if there's stuff that you need as teachers and advisors, remember your job is to advise, not to do. The student should be doing it. So just tell us, hey, my students don't get this part. Can we have an officer walk them through it? And Rada and Tulaski will set up some things to help you. So next week, we'll go further into the events and the POA. Kind of the next tabs here have action events. And then there's also a section on budget, which we'll do going forward. Like, if you want to track your chapter finances in there, it can be useful for your treasurer to do. And then we'll also talk the week after about how you can scan students in for meetings. You can print off little AET cards, or you can scan their student IDs. And so we'll do that in 2 weeks. So this week was just strategic planning.
So by now you should have your chapter profile and teacher profiles done. You can add courses as those decisions are made this week that influence all those things. And then you can start working with your chapter officers and getting your strategic plan put together. This video will be uploaded, and that CEU quiz will be available starting tomorrow if you're looking for CEU credits as well. Thanks, guys. Let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
And I think I got my question answered. And
so this is said. Okay, so the question was, how soon do we want these things accomplished? I want to be clear on that. Nothing in AET is really required except things we're already doing. Okay. So you're required to do FFA membership through it, and you're required to have students do profiles, because that's how we pull membership and how we'll pull your data. Now, in the future, we might decide, hey, we want to use AET for POAs, and I think the adult board and the teachers would make that decision. Or you guys could start saying, we're going to do we're not going to have any state degree application wouldn't be accepted unless it's an AET. Or, we could make those decisions, but we're not there yet. So there's a lot of great stuff that we're walking through, and we encourage you to use it, but none of it is required. So I would encourage you to use it in the POA form there, but you're not mandated to do it.
No, and I'm just trying, yeah, that answers it, because I just want to know, I'm trying to stay ahead of all this stuff with possibly what's coming with everything. And so it's like, the more I can actually get done, the better. So I mean, this may be something I sit and start finagling with tonight or tomorrow. Just, I don't know. I don't want this all, like, at some point said, we got to do this. And I could have, this has been good. This weekly has forced me to get stuff done. So that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I think we would say the profiles, students are going to have to log in and fill out their profiles. What's their name, their gender, ethnicity, address, all that. Because then they'll say, do I want to be an FFA or not? Or is everyone an FFA and you export them? You'll do that. And then that'll do your profile on it for your state info. We'd love it if you did other stuff, like the work-based learning info is invaluable. To me, the FFA info is invaluable. And so you should, but I know some schools, one school was telling us they tried having students do everything, like 100%, 10 photos of everything, all in. And I mean, honestly, I did that too, and my students didn't fight me, but their students did. And so it might have worked better for them to start slowly. I think you know your program better than we do, and that's why we're not saying you must do all this. I think you will know what you should be doing when.
Now, depending on, crossing our fingers, I'm trying to be realistic, but I really want my students in my classroom at the start of the year. Is there going to be something coming, like a cheat sheet, that if we have to make it a online assignment, we might have that coming at some point from you guys? Or maybe you said something and I missed it.
Lavin, do you want to describe, because there's a bunch of stuff on AET, right?
Yeah, so there are a lot of resources on AET under teacher help. I know I sent a message to someone that's on officer retreat right now, and they said, we want to do this, so I obviously can't watch your webinar, and so I sent them. So Roger has some recordings out there and those help sheets that are out there.
Okay.
We are also hoping, I'm working with the state officers to record some from a student's lens, how to do some of these things. And so I'm hoping that, you know, you can have a video from Emily that's saying, hey guys, this is how we fill out our profile.
Okay.
So that you're able to just, you know, plug that into whatever virtual platform you need. And the students can do that assignment and you just have to worry about grading it instead of teaching it.
Because honestly, I'm just like, you know, depending on what they tell us, literally this may be an assignment in every one of my classes to kick off the year just to get it done.
So like I put a link in the chat window. There's a worksheet for students on the first day, and you could determine if you, like for me, I knew students' ID number, like what they log in to their computers in at school. So I had that pulled down into it. That was their username, and then their password was the same for the first time. And so I told all my students it's the same info as your login on your normal computer. That seemed to make my life a lot better. But then there's also a student video on here that they could watch, and then it tells them when they've completed their profile. Like, are you at 90%, 100% complete? So you could also have them do their resume in the first week. That would be another really good activity to get you some time. And remember, distance learning, if we're in that environment, is maybe a 25, 30% pace. So in one day, I might do just the profile in a normal class, but maybe that first week we say do your profile and your resume, and that's it. The other 3 days are nothing. So,
all right. I feel like we're kind of juggling, trying to anticipate what's coming, but I don't know about everybody else, but I'm trying to head off and plan a little bit ahead here so I don't turn into a psycho woman later. Okay.
Yeah. And if you go under reports, like we'll cover this again later, but if you go under reports, you can actually do student grading report. And so that will pull up how much of their profile is complete.
Got it. Okay.
And so that, like for me, that was just a 10-point assignment due the first week of school, as they needed to have this contact info column completely done. And you, like when they sign up for courses, you can sort it by your class. Like it's super simple. Like this alone is what saved me having to carry SE record books everywhere. Because you can sort it and you can see service hours, leadership, profiles, resumes, like all of that in one sheet. And then you just have to click into it if something doesn't look right.
We had assignments in the program for SAE and FFA, and we have some stuff in the program approval resources and I can send it, but I made them do, God, I hope I get this right now because I keep getting it wrong, but 10 hours of SAE and 5 hours of FFA a semester. And so if you look at that FFA box, it says how many hours they did and how many events they did. So it would show, like, if someone tried telling me they did 87 hours at one event, I'm like, call BS on that. Like, no, maybe national convention. But that was an easy way for me to quickly look at it and grade it. And then also figure out, like, I got to yell at Lisa because she's the only one on this list that hasn't done it yet.
Okay. Right. And I see, that makes sense.
Tiffany, also under the teacher help, there's a whole set of lesson plans already developed by AET. I've been with Roger doing this online AET thing with them for the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. We met yesterday. They have a whole worksheet laid out for doing foundational SAEs and walking them through the first 5 steps of the foundational piece. So it's all there as an assignment ready to go. And it's in a Microsoft Word document so you can modify it and go with it.
Okay, so just odd question. So I've got the AET up. Where? I would just like, so I could look at it. Where is that the classroom resources one?
Yes, AET classroom.
No, okay, no, shoot, I'm back on project. I'm on reports.
Go far left.
Yep.
Under student help, teacher help, AET classroom.
It's under curriculum now. They've made a few changes. Like there's teacher help, student help, and then there's curriculum.
So on the home page, if you
Okay,
go to curriculum,
I'm on, oh, there it is, lesson plans at the top.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah,
Got it.
lesson
Okay.
plan.
But even on your first week, you could have them. The Explore SAE resources are really cool if you are doing SAE as an assignment.
Yeah.
It's a whole website that walks them through finding careers they might want to do.
Okay.
So that could take a couple of days. I think AET could be really valuable to us in a distance learning space to get to at least 2 or 3 weeks of lessons.
That's what I'm looking at. If this is what I'm trying to especially figure out, all my classes got to do it, but especially my freshmen. And that's, I can't save this to try to get ready here in less than a few weeks. I've got to try to work this ahead. Okay, now I know where. I mean, I've used
the
AET, I just haven't
small
utilized
bite-sized
it.
stuff with them, kind of like we're doing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say 10 pictures and 87 reflections, and
No.
give them this one thing of set up your profile, and that should take you 2-3 days.
Yep. No, that'd be perfect. Okay. Thank you, Bruce, too. Yeah, now I know where it is. Awesome.
Maybe we should do some workshops in the fall about that stuff, Bruce, about how to teach with it.
Maybe that's something that could be happening, at regional leadership meetings, if they take place, that we could be doing that with the advisors, getting them up to speed with some of these pieces too.
And if some of us advisors can't go, if somebody could at least,
I gotta hop off. Thank you, everyone. Lavin can answer questions.
Yep.
Yeah.